Hi there. Thanks so much for joining us as we take you through another informative weekend edition of Jamaica Magazine. I am your host, Adrian Atkinson. Inside the pages, the return of Western Roundup, health tips, plus a state-led initiative to support victims of violent crimes. All these and much more. You don't want to miss any of it. So please stay with us.
Why war? Why killing? God made us all to love each other. Why stray from the word of God? Remember, we are our brother's keeper. Let us stop and reflect that God is love and erase the war and the killing from our minds. Our fathers and our mothers, our brothers and our sisters, our seniors are all getting frustrated from the sound of the guns. When is this painful phenomenon going to stop? Is it a disease that is taking root in our land? Let us kneel together and ask our Creator to grant us that loving word, peace.
The Joint Select Committee of Parliament, considering job descriptions, codes of conduct and performance standards for parliamentarians, wants to hear from you. Send your opinions in writing by Tuesday, October 3, 2023 to Clerk to the Houses, Gordon House, 81 Duke Street, Kingston. Or email us at clark@japarliament.gov.jm. Visit the Parliament's website at www.japarliament.gov.jm for details.
Thanks again for being here. Buckle up for our Western Roundup journey with team member Nikita Sterling. She'll be taking us to the Black River Hospital, which has been certified as a baby-friendly space. Then we'll witness farmers getting assistance to build resilience. All that and more next.
On this episode of Western Roundup, we take you to the Black River Hospital, where they recently received baby-friendly hospital status. Then we head to Trelawney, where we hear from farmers who received tanks under government small, medium and tourism enterprise program. Stick around.
The Black River Hospital in St. Elizabeth is the 7th and latest facility to be designated baby-friendly across the island. A baby-friendly hospital aims to give every baby the best start in life by creating a healthcare environment that promotes breastfeeding. This is an accomplishment the staff at the Black River Hospital are pleased with, having worked tirelessly to achieve this status.
And we literally ate, breathed and slept baby friendly. It's one of those instances in which you see an entire community, an entire hospital pulled together, and it was actually heartwarming. I now know that we are ready to pull together to make B status happen. So finally we got the green light, and finally we exhaled, and it was worth it. It was worth it.
Speaking during the certification ceremony, Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Christopher Tufton commended the team and hailed the initiative as successful, while expressing gratitude to the stakeholders for facilitating its implementation in Jamaica.
While we are in a work in progress, this is a successful initiative that has been taken seriously. Compliments to UNICEF and the WHO PAHO as the key multilateral partners, and the team, the local team, where we have partnered, recognized the importance of maternal care, baby-friendly designation in our institutions, and the results are clearly here to show. It is not as easy as it seems. Baby friendly is a nice buzzword, but to actually get the stamp of approval, there are a lot of things that you have to do. There's a lot of training that has to take place, a lot of infrastructure adjustment that have to take place, and more often than not, those things require time, effort, and resources. Mostly a commitment to the cause.
The Baby Friendly Hospital Initiative was launched by UNICEF and the World Health Organization in 1991. The other facilities already certified are Princess Margaret Hospital in St. Thomas, Alexandria Community Hospital in St. Anne, Port Antonio Hospital in Portland, Port Maria Hospital in St. Mary, Lioneltown Hospital in Clarendon, and the Mandeville Regional Hospital in Manchester. Over in Trelawney, farmers are expressing gratitude to the Ministry of Tourism and its stakeholders for the donation of 5,650-gallon water tanks.
Receiving this tank has helped me a lot because I'm a farmer. During the span of time that I did not have the tank, it was hard. But now that I have received the tank, I'm so grateful. It has helped me a lot. And I want to thank everybody. I'm a farmer. I do pepper, cabbage, lettuce, and I am very grateful for the tank. Before the tank, it's like, the drought and all of that, they have a little problem, but now I get the tank, I think things will be much, much better. I am so grateful for it.
The tanks were donated under the ministry's Small, Medium and Tourism Enterprise Program, which enables players in that sector to command a larger share of the tourism dollar.
Now, this program is coming to Ulster Spring and its environment today as a part of a wider government policy and initiative to bring more of the ordinary Jamaican into the big, long, tall, and a nice word called elongated value chain of tourism. A lot of people believe that tourism is about only what happens in the hotel. That's a little part, yes. But would you believe that 42% of all the money that a tourist spend when they come to a Jamaica, to a place, is on what? Food.
That's all for the program today. As usual, thank you for joining us for Western Roundup, where we take you from the corners of St. Elizabeth to the hilly terrains of St. Anne. Remember to send your feedback to jismobi@jis.gov.jm. Until next time, take care.
If you no want pop down and fenke, you fi burn mosquito and run with dengue. So no make water circle in open container. For them we read up under the danger. Usher them out, run them away. Zap them with the zapper and down them with spray. Use mosquito net and mosquito screen. Protect your household, now make them come in. If you no want pop down and fenke, we fi burn mosquito and run with dengue. If pain lick your head and your joints and your eye, and you want fever meat and your temperature high, it could be dengue, don't hesitate. See a doctor, don't self-medicate. For some painkiller can make you bleed and you will try to recover and no succeed. We no want pop down and fenke. We fi burn mosquito and run with dengue.
A message from the Ministry of Health.
We now turn to our HealthWise segment where we focus on cardiovascular and heart-related complications in persons with diabetes. Please take note of the risks and how to avoid them.
Diabetes is a common illness. Most of us may be aware of its various complications, such as diabetic retinopathy and neuropathy, diabetic kidney disease, and so on. But when it comes to deaths caused from diabetes, cardiovascular complications account for the majority. Diabetes is recognized as one of 4 major factors for developing cardiovascular disease, the others being hypertension, obesity, and cigarette smoking.
About 68% of persons over the age of 65, and this is data now from the American Heart Association, 65% of persons over the age of 65 who have diabetes will die from heart disease, and about another 16% will die of stroke.
Before we take a look at how to manage or even prevent cardiovascular complications of diabetes, let us look at how persons come to develop the disease.
In a nutshell, what generally happens is that diabetic persons have a more rapid rate at which fat and cholesterol is deposited in the arterial system. So we all have that. It's considered part of the process of aging. Fat and cholesterol is being laid down in our arteries. However, diabetic persons tend to have that happen at a more rapid rate. Okay? And as a result of that, what tends to happen is that diabetic persons will progress to a point where they have compromised vessels. So in other words, the lumen, the diameter of the vessel, is narrowed, the flow of blood is limited.
And as the heart muscles become starved of blood, various acids accumulate and persons will tend to experience what is called angina, or a type of chest pain.
You may get complete blockage of the vessel, which may now result in what is called a heart attack.
Heart tissues are not meant to function in an environment where the blood sugar level is elevated. And so, another incidence of diabetic cardiovascular complication results where high blood sugar levels in persons who are diabetic becomes directly toxic to heart cells. This impairs the ability of blood vessels to open normally under conditions of stress, such as exercise, and also causes inflammation and impaired clotting of the blood.
So if they're chronically exposed to those levels of elevated blood sugars, then there are biochemical consequences. There's weakness of the heart muscle, and patients, many of them, go on to developing heart failure and so on.
The diagnosis of cardiovascular complications is more difficult in diabetics, where the symptoms appear unclear or may be different from the non-diabetic patient. Take, for example, a non-diabetic person with, say, coronary heart disease.
Generally, they will say, well, look, doc, I felt pressing pain to the center of my chest. It's moving down my left arm. It comes on with activity. It stops when I stop engaging in whatever activity. It feels like a weight or like a pressure, like a squeezing sensation, and it's associated with other things like shortness of breath and so on. Diabetics, however, have a particular problem because they have damage to the nerves, and therefore they may not actually experience chest pain at all. If they do, it may not be the typical angina which we would normally expect a patient to describe. Okay? So oftentimes diabetic patients who are having cardiovascular disease will say that, doc, I just feel a little funny sensation in my chest, a little discomfort. I just feel short of breath, or, I'm walking up the stairs, or I'm running after my grandkids and I find that I'm just out of breath.
The rest of the diagnostic process, however, is similar and may include an echocardiogram, ECG, blood works, or various stress tests accessible at public health facilities and at the Heart Foundation of Jamaica. Generally, diabetic patients will have elevated blood sugars in their urine, which, if identified, serves as a red flag and need for more specific testing. A urinalysis or urine dipstick test is generally done as part of school medicals, oftentimes as a screening test for diabetes. As with every illness, early detection and prevention is key to having good health.
It would be good every year for every person to be checked. If you're diabetic, you would have been told how often you need to check your blood sugar by your health professional. But if you're just doing checks and you're healthy otherwise, then at least once a year to check your cholesterol, your sugar, your blood pressure, do your ECG to see if there is any abnormality in the heart.
The treatment of cardiovascular disease in diabetic patients is more holistic, involving lifestyle changes to include diet, exercise, and maintaining a healthy weight.
In a nutshell, we advocate for, eating primarily fruits and vegetables, things like whole grains and nuts, limiting one's intake of fast foods with high fat content, high cholesterol, salt, and so on, and portion size management as well.
More unprocessed foods, less of the very refined high sugar foods. So there are those foods that are obviously very high in sugar. So the typical recommendation, if you look at a plate, half of the plate should be more plant-based foods, leafy vegetables, and some fruit.
In general, 150 minutes minimum per week of moderate exercise such as swimming, brisk walking, jogging or cycling is recommended. Besides the lifestyle changes, clinical treatment through prescription drugs and surgical procedures is an important element in caring for persons with cardiovascular complications of diabetes.
We have medications to address symptoms, we have medications to prolong life. And that forms an important part of the approach. There are a variety of procedures which diabetic patients and other non-diabetic patients may qualify for, or it may be necessary to pursue. So we speak of things like stenting, for example, coronary artery bypass grafting, which is of course open heart surgery, major surgery. Diabetic patients we have a lower threshold for referring diabetics for that kind of procedure just because of the severity of their disease.
Medications developed primarily for use by diabetic patients have been shown to have significant cardiovascular benefits as they reduce the risk of death and complications related to cardiovascular disease in diabetic patients. But with most of them still under patent, access is quite costly. Your best treatment option is to adopt healthy lifestyle practices that make you less prone to developing diabetes or cardiovascular disease.
Protect yourself from the flu virus. Visit your nearest health center or doctor to get the flu vaccine. Cover your mouth and nose when coughing and sneezing. Wash your hands regularly with soap and water or by using an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Avoid the spread of germs by not touching your eyes, mouth, or nose. And be sure to regularly disinfect surfaces and objects that are used often. Remember, your health is your responsibility.
As we near the end of today's half-hour journey inside Jamaica Magazine, we'll take a look at the support systems available to victims of traumatic and violent experiences.
The Victim Services Division provides support for all victims of crime. It does not matter the type of crime that has been committed against you, or doors are open to you.
Some of those victims are persons who've suffered sexual abuse, family members of people murdered, individuals who've experienced robbery and intimate partner violence, otherwise known as domestic abuse. They all can be grouped into one of three categories: primary, secondary, or tertiary victim. Who is a primary victim?
The person to whom the crime has been directly committed. Now, in the case where the primary victim is deceased, we will provide the service to their next of kin and their immediate family members, who in this case will be the secondary victims.
Secondary victims may not have had the act perpetrated on them, but they do experience some amount of trauma due to what their loved ones may have endured. Then there are the tertiary victims.
Victim service workers are categorized as tertiary victims. And so we think about persons like the police officers who have to interface with these situations on a day-to-day basis. There is secondary traumatization that they experience. And so it is critically important that persons not only recognize that these events can have an impact on them, be they primary, secondary, or tertiary victim, but also that they need to get assistance to be able to deal with the effects of the trauma that they have experienced.
Tertiary victims also suffer what's called vicarious trauma. This results in some form of distress caused from the horrific experiences of others.
For example, a mother who has a 9-year-old child and hears of the incident where a 9-year-old was brutally murdered. That person will feel some amount of trauma, some amount of fear even because of what has happened to that child when they think of the fact that they too have a 9-year-old child.
a department in the Ministry of Justice, the Victim Services Division is determined to help.
We have come to recognize that even in the cases where there are physical wounds, when those have healed, the wounds that are created, the psychological wounds and the social injuries that are created, are far harder to heal, especially if the person has received no intervention to deal with the trauma that they have faced.
The division provides a support system for individuals, including through counseling sessions which have been extended to e-counseling, an initiative that was boosted by the COVID-19 pandemic. This is a therapeutic process that is based on trauma-informed care to help individuals cope. Another is crisis intervention. This is where experts at the division may need to accompany police officers onto a scene to help victims understand what is happening. It's known as on-the-scene response.
Additionally, we provide services in terms of home visits. So we'll visit the homes of victims and provide services to them there, school visits, and that sort of thing in terms of crisis intervention.
Another part of the treatment focuses on informing the victims of their rights.
We try to assist them through the process, get in touch with the relevant persons to get information that they may need to even understand the process of the investigation, what is happening, what will be happening, or what should happen.
Due to the unnerving experience of a trial and the added traumatization of the victims, the division also gives court support to help persons prepare for trial.
When a victim has to go to court, it can be a very frightening experience for both adults and children. So one of the ways in which we advocate, instead of having the victim being seated in the same area and being able to be seen by the perpetrator and they're seeing the perpetrator and they may feel fearful and not able to go through the process, we ask that they be seated in another area where they don't have to interface with this, or even where they don't have to interface where possible with the general public.
The Victim Services Division also provides a Children in Court program.
In terms of dealing with the children, some of the tools that we use, we may utilize a model courtroom that really depicts the courtroom setting and give them an idea as to where individuals may be seated, who they will interact with, who they can expect to interact with them, that sort of thing. In some instances, we're even able to bring the victim to the courthouse prior to the date so that they can basically see the lay of the land and get a better appreciation and understanding. So when they turn up on that day, it's not all brand new to them. And preparation for us, let me be clear, is really orientating them to the process. We do not interfere with statements. We do not interfere with whatever it is they will be going there to say. We are all about the court process, the layout of the court, and basically educating them as to what they can expect.
You do not have to suffer in silence. You do not have to be afraid.
We operate on a principle of neutrality. It does not matter who you are. It does not matter what your story is. Our doors are open to you once you have become a victim of a crime.
For more information, contact the Victim Services Division in your parish and get help today.
An emergency shelter is provided by the government as a safe alternative and last resort for those negatively affected by disasters. Here are things to consider before going to a shelter. Is it safe to stay at home? If the answer is yes, remain indoors until you receive the all clear from the recognized authorities such as the ODPEM and the Meteorological Service of Jamaica, and it is safe to go outside. If your location is not safe, and you can temporarily shelter with friends or family who live in a safe location, ask. And if yes, relocate. But if you may get hurt at home and there are no friends or family you can securely stay with, then seek refuge at the closest emergency shelter. Remember to take food, water, and other essential supplies for at least 3 days. During a disaster, we want all Jamaicans to be safe. Have a plan. Keep up to date with the latest information so you can make the best decision for your safety.
discrimination has and continue to be an issue when it comes to dealing with and managing the HIV response. What we have found is that while we have treatment that is free, while we have health facilities across the country that allows services to be available and accessible, we also have the Jamaica AIDS Support for Life that also provides services for people living with HIV. We still find that persons are still afraid to access the services. And this issue is related to what they think or what they perceive or what they think is real when it comes to being discriminated against. So discrimination is persons are being treated in a disrespectful way. They are being asked questions that are not necessarily relevant for the reason why they're in the space that they're in and when they're asking for services. And these are concerns that we have had over the years. We have had many interventions. Just to be clear, the National HIV Response, Enabling Environment and Human Rights component of the response looks at different areas related to stigma and discrimination as well as human rights violations. So we have NGOs, that's non-government organizations or otherwise known as civil society organization, and government organizations working together to reduce stigma and discrimination. Some of those programs include legal literacy and know your rights campaigns, where we have the civil society organization working very closely with the community members, people living with HIV and the key populations, to help them to understand what their rights are, to help them to understand that services should be available, affordable, accessible, appropriate. The government of Jamaica has done a lot of work in trying to reduce stigma and discrimination as well, especially the Ministry of Health and Wellness. So why are we doing Champions for Change then with all the work that we're doing? It's interesting to note that stigma and discrimination seem to be very culturally rooted in our society. It's so normal for us to walk into a room and for someone to look at you, and from looking at you they decide and prescribe how they should treat you. Unfortunately, the treatment is not always a good treatment. Fear is a big factor on it, as the Ministry of Health and Wellness is always very key on looking at the health of all citizens of Jamaica.
This is where we leave you on today's edition of Jamaica Magazine. Be here on this station tomorrow for more information you can use to transform your life. Until then, visit our website, jis.gov.jm, for this and other offerings. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Adrian Atkinson. Have a great weekend and walk good.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.